This is episode 3 of the Operation Paragon podcast. I am your host, Gabriel Schickler, and today we are joined by Joe McCarthy. He is a young, successful entrepreneur and a close friend of mine, and it's an honor to have him here for the first interview episode. Today we discuss how to find your path, what you should consider before attending college, how to find a wife, and why he decided to get married at 20, how to set yourself up for success at a young age, and much, much more. I've known Joe for several years, I think 6 or 7 years at this point. Mm-hmm. We went to the same high school together, and Joe was always just a little different from everyone else, just kind of stood out on his own. And it wasn't really until I graduated that I found out that he had been just hustling and grinding away with all sorts of stuff in the personal marketing and branding space and everything like that, and really focusing on getting his success and his vision and his dreams going while he was still in high school. And so he transitioned very neatly out of that, completely skipped college, and he has been working with Grow With Us agency for over 5 years at this point, helping to scale up people's brands, take them to the next level. And he has already done a lot of podcasts on the branding and the marketing side of things. So if you're interested in that and you want to build a business or just position yourself better, check him out at Real Joe McCarthy on Instagram. And you can obviously check out those other podcasts as well. But today, given our shared history, I wanted to look a little bit more into kind of the personal side of things, really what got you started. So the first thing that I really want to start with is just in terms of what got you started and interested in, and started on this path in the first place, decades ahead of when people really typically find that path. Like, what was it that got you interested in it? And then how did you get things going at such a young age?
Yeah, well, as most of you guys know, if you've seen any of my interviews, I grew up on a farm, so I raised chickens, turkeys, all kinds of different animals. So I kind of had like a business structure with that because I would, get the product, raise the, animals, butcher them, sell them, and then make a profit. That's obviously the goal. But what I had an issue with was finding clients. So I was pretty good at getting the product, packaging it up, making it look all pretty. But the one side I had, which was lacking, would be the marketing and the sales. So I had tons of product, no sales. And that was kind of like my start of, getting, I guess, kind of like thinking about like how can I sell these products. So what I ended up doing is I came across Facebook and Instagram. Long story short, I was probably 14, 15 years old. And that's where I kind of got introduced to branding and marketing. So that's kind of how I got started. And then funny enough, so Joel Salatin, he's the kind of like the pioneer of sustainable farming. And the funny thing is his first apprentice at his farm was Ty Lopez, right? And Ty Lopez,
no way.
If anybody knows,
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, so if anybody knows who Ty Lopez is, obviously he's like this massive marketer. He kind of pioneered like the online guru space.
And I think he just started posting again too.
Yeah. So he like disappeared like around COVID, and then he started just recently coming back. But he still talks about Joel Salatin. So Joel lives like 2 hours away from where we're at right now. So I've gone to his farm multiple times. I've met Joel Salatin in person. But I was reading Joel Salatin's books. There's a couple on the shelf, and I've read probably 4 or 5 of those. And he's also very business minded, right? So he kind of created these models of like how you can raise chickens more efficiently, sell them for more of a profit, make more money. So I started reading up on those books, and I was probably 12 or 13 years old. But when he did an interview, he's actually very popular. He's a very famous farmer because he kind of started the movement of sustainable agriculture in a way, or kind of brought it back. So he was going on all these interviews, and there's one interview called London Real back, in Europe, and he went on this podcast, and he asked him about Ty Lopez because Ty Lopez was also on that famous podcast. So he was mentioning that he was like driving in his Lamborghini, and I was like, that doesn't sound like Joel Salatin at all. But I looked up this Ty Lopez guy, and funny enough, he's got like tons of cars, Lamborghinis, and he basically said like to get all the success, he basically just read books. So that's when I kind of got introduced to like, Napoleon Hill, Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, all the and then I really just dove into that. So that's kind of like long story short how we got started, or how I got interested in business, and then that translated into like business and marketing.
Awesome. Yeah, and so something I guess I should have mentioned in the intro as well is that part of the skipping the bell curve with college, Joe was always, I'll say kind of mature for your age. So you dated Clara for, I think it was like 4 years, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
And then you got married when you were 20.
Oh yeah.
And you have a beautiful daughter and a beautiful family now. So it seems like, with Grow With Us and the marketing that you're currently doing and that, you're very dialed in. Like you have a clear idea of what you want to do with your life, the things that suit you, the path you want to be on. And obviously there's going to be some, like sometimes of doubt and confusion like everyone has. But for any young men that are, watching this, high school, college, maybe even later than that, and not really having an idea of that specific path or really what their genius is and how they can, add value to the world, what guidance would you give them to really finding their thing and then just going all in on it like you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to experimenting. Like we were talking with one of our buddies earlier, just you never really know what you're good at or what you enjoy doing if you don't go out and try. So there was, I loved farming. I still obviously do, but like up until like probably 18 or 19, I kind of weaved out of farming and got into like more of the marketing and online world, and I feel like that's what I really have a passion for. But I probably wouldn't have found that if I didn't put myself out there, start posting content, building a brand. So I think you ultimately have to figure out like what you enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing. I think finding out what you don't like is also just as important as what you do like, because then you can start to kind of weave out what you do not like, and also start reading too. It's like I started reading a ton of books on real estate and kind of interested me, but not really. So I was like, maybe down the line I'll start investing into real estate, but I didn't really have like a fiery passion for that. I started reading up on marketing, like Grant Cardone stuff that has more like the marketing side of things I was really interested in. So I started diving into that kind of stuff. So I'd say just experimenting, reading, figuring out what you like. You're also not going to necessarily find what you like right off the bat. Like there's people that take years and years to actually figure out what they enjoy. So it's also not a race. You don't have to figure it out necessarily in high school. That's more of the time to like experiment, figure out what you do and don't like. And then just don't compare to other people. That's probably what I would say.
Awesome, yeah. And so one of the things that obviously is kind of remarkable is the fact that you did start this in high school. You got that ball rolling, and college was pretty much out of the question for you. You said your parents weren't completely on board with it, but like you kind of had that proof of concept. So you were able to convince them that things would work out. If somebody right now is either in college or considering going to college, but they want to start a business or build a brand, and maybe even they feel like they need to go to college to learn how to, I don't know, do videography or something like that, what would you say to that person right now? Because I went to college for several years. I dropped out eventually, and that was kind of something that we were going back and forth with a lot for a long time. Yeah, but for somebody that's in that like in between phase, not really sure if they want to go, or maybe they're seeing all these other entrepreneurs that say college is never worth it, skip it entirely. Where do you land on that spectrum?
Well, it's a pretty big decision. It's a very expensive decision. So if you don't know if you want to go, if you don't know why you're going, then I would say at least skip a year, figure out like what you actually want to do. Because I would also say examine why you think you have to go. Like, are you going because you want to please your parents? Are you going because you want to not be made fun of by your friends or by your peers? Are you doing it because that's what everybody else is doing? Like, you need to really put some critical thought into like why you feel like you need to go to college. Because obviously some people do need to go to college if you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, surgeon. Like, you need specific degrees. So if that's a passion of yours, by all means go to college, right? But for 95% of the population, most people don't actually use their degree. They waste time in college. So I think since it's a massive, like, it can be a 6-figure decision in most cases. I would say if you don't have a clear vision for why you're going, take a breather, at least 6 to 12 months, figure out like what path you want to go down, what roadmap you want to go down. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth going to college and spending all that money if you're going to drop out.
I will say, just for the audience, this very well, but one of my big things in those first few semesters was specifically like I was terrified of freaking out my parents. I didn't want them to worry about me. I wanted them to think that I had everything locked down and under control. And then later on, the last 2-3 semesters were more for personal formation and things in that respect. But for anybody that's watching this, if your parents are wanting you to go to college, you do need to acknowledge that there has been just a fundamental shift in the demand for college degrees.
Yeah.
And this is a huge rabbit hole we could do an entire podcast on. But the short version is that there's been this massive inflation where basically the demand for jobs that require a college degree, it's increased a little bit, but it hasn't increased anywhere near as quickly as just this skyrocketing rate of people that are going to college. And so that means that having a degree in general is less valuable. And also because of the government subsidies and all these different things that make it possible for people that normally wouldn't be able to go to college to attend it, they're basically incentivizing people to, go add to that pool of degrees, but then the universities have either consciously or unconsciously designed easier programs, which means you can go through and get a degree in something that maybe is going to serve you later on, maybe not, but keep in mind all degrees are not equal, like you said. Like if somebody is studying law or being a doctor or something like that,
that makes sense.
You have to go through the 4 years and then additional training and certification. That should weigh a lot more heavily than getting a degree in something like
Arts.
sociology or the arts, something like that.
And then on the arts.
And the thing is, like, for our parents, because it was less common for people to go to college and there were fewer people with degrees, that thing was more valuable. But now because there are so many people out there, companies actually are...
They're actually doing the opposite.
They're
now.
dropping
they're
the degree requirements and everything.
We don't really care if you have a degree. Like most, especially like being in the business world these days, what I've realized is most people don't really care if you have a degree or not. Like I would never ask someone like, "What's your degree?" because I don't care. Most people care these days about
can you get the result?
Results, work ethic. Like are you passionate? Are you driven? Like those characteristics mean way more to a company or an owner than like a degree, because I know a lot of people who've gotten degrees and they're super lazy, and it's like you said, they made it so easy for anyone to get a degree that it's like, okay, you have a piece of paper, but can you actually work hard? Do you have critical thinking skills? Like, are you resourceful? Are you driven, motivated? And a lot of times it's a no.
Yeah, I saw this video the other day of this girl that had a degree in, I think it was like you posted this. You posted that one, right? Yeah, the girl with the communications degree, and she was handing out resumes to people on the street in New York City, and nobody was like accepting her, right?
Yeah.
And then of course the student debt thing is a whole other thing, but so that's awesome. And then another thing that's really unconventional about your life is the decision to get married so young.
Yeah.
Like you obviously you dated Clara for a very long time, but I have yet to see an entrepreneur influencer aside from yourself that will either say, sleep around and get some experience, or just like wait until you're 25, you've built, like focus on the money first and everything. So my question with that is kind of two parts, which is first, what made you so certain that like this is what you wanted to commit the rest of your life to at such a young age? And then also, I guess, what is the... what would be the standard for somebody that's watching this that's like maybe thinking, they're 17, 18, 19, 20, they're wanting to, get started dating and everything. They're not sure if it's a good time, if they should focus on the business. So what advice would you give to that person as well?
I feel like my scenario is a little bit unique because I obviously met her in high school, so we were kind of seeing each other every single day for years. So I kind of built up to know her, kind of figure out her characteristics and if we actually connected. And obviously I feel like we're soulmates, if you want to use that term. But I feel like for most people, if they're looking at dating, like I wouldn't go out and just like date for the heck of it. Like if you're going to date, you want to do it like seriously. You don't want to just like mess around and waste time. Like if you're going to date, you want to make sure you're doing it because, the end result is marriage or, having her as a wife or family. So I met her high school, maybe 8th, 9th grade. And then we dated all throughout high school. We got married. The reason I wanted to get married is just because, I knew I was going to marry her eventually. And also just like realistically, it would be a lot easier just to have her here, doing her role. I obviously make, most all the money and I'm the breadwinner in the house. So she does her part, I do my part. And we just kind of like jive very well together. So I basically knew like 10th grade, I would say that I'm like, okay, she's definitely the one. And I feel like kind of the
what
one.
were those, like, if you, and maybe you can't define entirely what it was, but like, what would you say were the top things that you're like, this is the woman I want to commit to?
Well, the thing is, what's funny is I see people who get married and they aren't even like, they don't even agree on like basic, like, I don't know, beliefs. So it's like
religion, politics.
Yeah, like religious, politics. Like, do you want to have
money
a
is
family?
a really big one.
So it's like if they're not clicking on like the 4 or 5 like main characteristics, it's like, okay, like maybe you're gonna have to work on it if you're planning on marrying this person. But with us, like with her, like we were on the same page with literally everything, and I could also tell that she saw something in me, because remember, I was in 8th or 9th grade. I don't even think I had the business yet. I had the farm, which was
You had the farm, yeah.
kind of building, I guess you could say, but I wasn't making any real money by any means, right? So like she knew me before I even had like any money, any status, and that's another reason why I think it makes sense if you know kind of like if you want to marry this person. I think it's better to get married young versus wait until you're older and try to find like someone when you're 30. Because if you're 30 and you're super successful, you're powerful, it's going to be a lot harder to find a woman who fits the pure intentions of someone like Clara.
You're saying she's not a gold digger.
Yeah,
basically.
she's not a gold digger. So I was in like 8th or 9th grade. I knew she wasn't a gold digger, but she saw something in me, right? Like she knew, she could kind of see like, okay, this guy's going places. So instead of her kind of tearing me down with like just drama and all that BS that you find in high school, instead she kind of built me up to hit bigger goals. I could feel like she believed in me. So yeah, there's definitely feelings of like things I can't explain that are just like you can feel that she's like the one, like God put her in my life for a reason. So when you know that when you're like in 10th or 11th grade, it's like 3 years later, it's like, okay, might as well make it official. And I feel like once you get married, I put this in a video once, you kind of hit like a next level of responsibility, manhood, and same with having kids. It's like once you once you have kids, it's like level. That's a whole other level. So it's also like it's official, right? Like you're not just dating. It's like there's no possibility of her leaving or you leaving. It's like we're in this together. So it's like it also makes it feel more official. And I was like, might as well do that now versus later, because I feel like if we're married and it's official and we're in this together, we're like a unit. It also just gives me a little bit more of a kick in the butt to go crush it in life.
Yeah, and so kind of with the idea of starting things young. Again, like Joe was just grinding away. He would like sneak into the bathroom during school and be texting clients and things like that. So he was like just dialed in. I think you tried to finish all your homework in study halls and things so you could get home and just like stay locked into that. Yep. So do you think if someone is not kind of in that position, because you got married very young, but again you're also starting decades earlier than other people.
That's the other thing is you want to make sure you're ready. Like I was also financially stable. I was moved out. I basically had what the average 30-year-old guy has these days. So like if you're not making a ton of money, or at least a decent amount of money, if you're not moved out, then maybe wait until you're 23 or 25 or whatever happens to be. But in my scenario, I was also making a decent amount of money. So if you have everything in check, you have you're on the same page with things, you're making a decent amount of money. Like if you check all the boxes, then I see it as like a no-brainer to get married.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. And so, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of these statistics specifically, but Joe just recently posted a couple days ago that, or more accurately, Dre, so the CEO of Grow With Us, posted that Joe made over $300K this year as a 21-year-old, right? Are you 22 now?
21 still.
You're still 21. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. I don't know, man. I'm bad at keeping track of birthdays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you made over $300K this year, which puts you leaps and bounds ahead of the top 1% for your age. I think it's like 98,600 something is the 1% for our age, 21, 22, and then that 300K also puts you in the top 1% across all age demographics, 18 to retirement. Like you're in that top 1%. And you also posted that the goal for this year, so 2024, is to get all the way to $1 million.
Yeah.
What makes you so confident that you can 3x your income in the space of 12 months?
Well, I think knowing what I know now, building teams, delegation, like I didn't really have a lot of delegation, I feel like in 2023, and I still was able to do about 300K. So I know that if I have like a solid team behind me, being able to handle sales calls or like follow-ups, DMs, I think that's going to be like my main goal is actually work less but make more. So and that's how every CEO works who's who's doing 7 to 8, 9 figures. So I think delegation is going to be the biggest key, and then also I'm just also set up to crush it this year because I'm actually going to be dropping a program around March, so that'll be a little bit more like a high ticket program, and it's also all my income, right? So it's like with Grow With Us, I get like a commission, so I'll make 25% on the profit or the total package. Versus with my own program, if I sell it for $4,000,
100%.
I profit $4,000 minus a couple small expenses, but it's like 95% margins, right? Which is crazy high for just business in general.
Yeah.
So once we launch that, like I'm planning on just crushing it. I'm gonna be posting a ton of content.
Is that 1 million part of this program, or is it strictly through Grow With Us and then this program of yours is a separate?
I'm not. We can get into goals too, but like I'm not super big on like setting like a massive unrealistic goal. Like you don't necessarily want to be like shoot small, right, and hit it. You want to kind of find somewhere in the middle where it's like it's gonna be a challenge to get there, but it is possible. Like I wouldn't say like it's possible for me to hit $8 million right this year because I haven't even hit like 500K. So I would say 1 million is probably total. Like if I can hit $1 million total this year, that would be insane for me. At,
that would be
22.
Insane.
So I'd say it encompasses the whole thing.
And can you talk a little bit to being an intrapreneur? So for those that are unfamiliar, this concept is basically instead of going out and starting your own company, you figure out what you are exceptionally good at. And then you position yourself in a company that's already built. And so this suits your personality type extremely well. And so like, let's be clear that Joe is not like, he doesn't own this company. He didn't like start it per se. You've been definitely integral to its success in the past couple of years. But if you could just talk a little bit to, first off, how people can find those things that they really enjoy doing and position themselves. And then also why it might be better than, buying some course on Instagram and saying, oh, I want to scale my own agency to 15K a month or whatever it happens to be, like the trend.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of young guys or even girls that are looking to get into business, they glamorize the CEO life. They think I have to be the boss. I have to make my own hours. I have to make all the decisions, which is cool. But especially getting started, especially right now, it's a pain in the butt, and it's almost like reinventing the wheel. So what I always tell people is like, if you don't really know, all the back end, logistics for creating a company, which most people don't, right? They have no idea what they're doing going into it. What I tell people is spend a couple years, like I did, go into a company that's already crushing it. There's really 3 main areas. It's marketing, sales, and then content creation. So like if you're good at copywriting, email marketing, video, creation, that's something everybody's going to need, especially moving forward, 2024, 2025. So I'd say go into something like that. Everyone needs sales, everyone needs marketing, leads, like everybody's looking for leads. So if you can fill one of those spots for an existing company that's crushing it, you're going to learn a lot more doing that. And you don't have to put up the risk. You don't have to put up the stress of being the CEO. Like I look at Dre and we'll hang out and it's like he's on his phone and he's having to handle like fires and like do all this stuff and he's on calls. Like
he's built for that.
Yeah, exactly. And some people are built for that, but most people are not built for that, especially getting started. So I'd say if you're looking to get into business, don't think you have to only go this entrepreneur boss life route. You can go into the entrepreneur route and be with a company, grow with the company, try to hit the goals. Like you're still making a ton of money. Like I made a lot of money just being an entrepreneur, and if we can hit these goals together, not have to put up risk, like you're actually kind of getting the better end of the deal, especially up front, I would say, because I mean you could sacrifice health, sanity, relationships sometimes for money and power, but at the end of the day it's like you kind of have to choose your poison. Like, do you want to be kind of
figure out what's the most important thing?
Yeah, exactly. Figure out like what your priorities are and kind of gear it towards that, I guess.
And I feel like one thing about that too is just, again, people kind of glamorize the lifestyle, but I have recently seen both Andy Frisella and Alex Ramosi, who are some of the like top entrepreneur influencers. They've said like they're now that they're making, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and they have all these things.
But it was better when they were doing like 100K.
Yeah, their lives are infinitely, like exponentially harder now than they were when they were working these things. They were like, I think Andy specifically has said, if the average person had to live one day in my shoes, it would destroy them, the level of stress that they have.
Yeah, so you have to choose kind of like what you
and I think that's
have.
something people don't account for is like, you might be able to, build up your own agency to like 2, 5, 10K or whatever. But if you want to get it bigger than that, you need to start bringing people on. You're going to have to worry about HR.
Yeah, like after you hit
you're
like
going to have
20
to
to 30,
delegate at some point.
20 to 30K. I think 30K is like that cap where it's like once you hit 30,000 profit per month, then you have to look at like delegating, you have to look at hiring out, you have to build a team, and then you have to worry about them, getting them paid. So it kind of creates like a little bit of added stress. And there's the saying, more money, more problems. I don't think there's necessarily more problems, but there's bigger problems. So it's like, instead of it being like, hey, I need to make a few bucks to pay for lunch today, it's like, hey, I got sued for 10 million, so I need to figure this out.
And also, like, I mean, if you're just servicing 3, 4 clients a month and one of them isn't happy with something, you can deal with that. You have 100 clients that are pounding on your door.
Yeah, it's a little bit more mentally challenging.
You got to be built for that. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that you said recently that I was actually thinking about asking about before you posted this, you put up a post where you're saying like, I feel like a very lucky person.
Yeah.
And that has a lot of kind of stigma around it because people will look at, again, people like Hormozy, Priscilla, yourself, they'll see you married on a pretty good path, making decent money, having the impact you want in a career that suits you. And they're like, well, you were just at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
You just got lucky. I can't replicate that because this and this and this and this. So if somebody is kind of, looking from the outside and just being like, well, you don't deserve anything and all these things, how do you respond to that? Because I'm sure you have had those doubts yourself at times. So what does that look like as far as the mindset goes?
Yeah, I mean, like I said on that post, when I was in high school, my dad was like, if you're going to continue on this career path and you're going to try to be super successful, you're going to get these people saying you're going to be lucky, you're privileged. Like, my dad's a lawyer, he makes good money. It's not that he's never given me, money to go out and invest in business. I started everything with, nothing. He helped me with the farm, which was super nice of him. But as far as like the business stuff, he actually didn't even necessarily support it. He was like, don't invest into I invested in a Tai Lopez's course just because I wanted to see kind of like what his marketing strategy was, and he basically said don't do it, and I did it anyways. Learned a ton of stuff, and that's kind of what got me on the trajectory. But yeah, he basically said like once you get to a level, like people are gonna start calling you lucky. And at first I was like, I'm not lucky, like I didn't make all this myself, and that's what these entrepreneurs are like. They're like, I did this all on my own, which like yes, you did build like this company and this business, on the back of your hard work, but at the same time you can't really deny that God, has given you a good amount of luck in your life. Like, if you were born in the USA, that's just enough to say, you're pretty freaking lucky, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're like in this time, like this era, just being born in this time, like yes, there's crazy things going on, but it's like imagine if you were born in
having access to the internet,
right?
like that alone.
That alone is insane. Like you literally have like a rocket ship in your pocket that you can just pull out and you can literally learn anything.
Yeah, and we worry more about people's opinions of us than we do like dying from starvation or disease or something, which has been every point.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like we have such minute problems these days. It's like you don't realize how lucky you are. Even if you did build your business all on your own and it's like you didn't have any help, it's like, yeah, that's cool, but at the same time, like you are still very blessed and lucky. And I think if people think they're not lucky, I think they're just totally discrediting what God's given them, what luck they have in their life.
Do you think they're also like setting themselves up for failure?
It's a good question. I think to a certain extent, I mean, you never really know. I think if you have such an ego that you're saying, like, this is all me, I created all this, God didn't play a part. Like, I'm sure at some point God's going to be like, no.
Stop.
Strike you down. But I think like when you get to like a level of like ego or like self-absorption where you think it's like, I did this all on my own, I have no luck in my life, I think there's a point where you probably will crumble, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then something else that's interesting is like a lot of what we consider luck is really a matter of perspective, because if you look at the most successful people in history are usually the ones that have had something that we would say is, objectively bad happened to them that's given them that drive to, make something of themselves and get to that next level. So
yeah, people still call them lucky. Like Tony Robbins, like his mom put soap like down his throat or something when he was little. She was super abusive to him. Like he's told this story a ton, and it's like, but
and his family couldn't afford food and all this stuff.
It's a Thanksgiving story. So like he used that though. Like he has all this trauma, but he used that to create a massive company. But people are still gonna call him lucky.
And one thing you said at the end of that video on luck that I thought was so telling was, you said you are lucky so that you can serve other people, or something to that effect. So it's not just about, or at least it sounds like for you, it's not just about like, oh yes, I am lucky, I am better than you.
Like, look at me. Yeah. I mean, there are people like that, and that's what I was saying is like the only time I see luck as being a bad thing is if like you're not using it to max out your life. Like if you're born into like a massive rich family and you're just a rich snob and you're not really doing anything with your life, you just have a ton of money, it's like, well, that's pretty unfortunate. Like you were given all this luck and now you're not really doing anything with it. So
much is given.
Yes, that's what I was saying at the end is like, if you are lucky, like let's say you're like I know people think you're under attack right now if you're like a straight white male, but it's like if you're a straight white male in the USA and you're born anytime during this period, it's like you're super lucky. So use that luck to help other people, max out your life, make a difference. And I think that kind of serves the luck right.
Awesome. Yeah. And so for the kind of last portion here, one thing that we've talked a lot about just back and forth is like kind of getting your mindset right, approaching success correctly, making peace with yourself, getting on the right path. So if somebody is, watching this, like struggling to not just find their path, but, beating themselves up for past mistakes or feeling like they're trapped where they are and they don't know how to get that momentum started, what would be the first, like, 1 or 2 steps that you would take, and what have you considered to be the most important mindset shifts in your own life to get you to where you are right now?
Yeah. I'd probably say like stop rushing. Like my coach all the time is like, you're rushing. It's like a lot of people, they're rushing so much, they think they're doing stuff and they're making an improvement, but at the end of the day they see like, okay, I did all this work, but I'm not actually improving myself. So a lot of times people will rush because they see other people on social media, entrepreneurs. It's gotten way worse than it was even like 3 years ago. Everyone just glamorizes it. It's like, hey, I'm 19 and I'm making
gotta rent that Lambo for the gram. Spend your money on that.
Yeah, so like that's the comparison game is like a whole thing in and of itself. But I would say like if you're in high school or you're young and you want to get after it, then I mean you need to not compare yourself to other people, but at the same time you also don't want to like rush into like you don't want to rush just in general, right? Because my coach actually said you'll rush past like the actual lesson, because a lot of people like they'll do all this work, they'll try to seem like they're busy, seem like they're doing something, or they'll beat themselves up for not being where they want to be, and you're actually like rushing past. There's usually a lesson there to teach you, whether it's like patience. Like Gary Vee is super big on patience. I think I don't know if it was Annie Frisella who said like or it might have been Gary Vee, like macro patience, micro patience, macro something.
No, I think it was macro patience, micro
like urgency
intensity or something like that.
I mean, it's basically saying like you want to be patient for the overall result, right? Because like being successful takes time, making a ton of money takes time, building a successful company takes time. But you want to be kind of like urgent in the moment. So you want to do tasks that are going to lead up to that overall result. But like if you're looking at someone's level 10 and it's taken them 5 years to get there, and you're comparing that to your like day one, it's like if you just started and you're like 3 weeks into entrepreneurship and you're comparing yourself to people who've been in the game for 8 to 10 years or decades, it's just going to be a recipe for disaster. So I think ultimately it comes down to comparison, because I feel like a lot of people who beat themselves up, it's because they're comparing either them to like the other people's results in their life, or even on just online, they're comparing themselves to other people's successes, and that age too. It's like these days it's like you're getting 19-year-old millionaires, 20-year-old millionaires. Kylie Jenner became a billionaire at 20. So like Alex Hormozi literally said, like Alex was like, I was like 30 and I made 10 million.
Oh, that's right.
But I looked at Kylie Jenner and she's like a billionaire at 20.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Good stuff. So you really think it just comes down to having that outward competitive focus?
I think so.
That's the biggest sabotage.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you're improving 1% each day, you're going to keep moving in the right direction. It doesn't have to be super fast. Like, imagine if you didn't have this comparison to all these other people. You know, as far as you know, you're on a steady trajectory. And again, you may not know exactly where you're going, but as long as you're making steps forward, you're going to figure out kind of like what your route is.
Awesome. Yeah. Really appreciate this, man.
Yeah.
So, before we get going here, I just want to say thank you for being my first guest on this podcast.
It's gonna be a big podcast.
You've been no, but Joe is an amazing friend. He's like I said, he's got a beautiful family. He's having an amazing impact on the world, and just overall, like I really feel blessed to call you a friend, and for all of the all the times you've been there for me, and all the work you're kind of putting in for me right now. It's just really something. So, like I said earlier, if people want to find out more about you, they can find you at Real Joe McCarthy on Instagram. Is there any other things that they should check out from you?
I just dropped the website, gemsocial.com. Feel free to check that out.
That's Gem with a J.
Yeah, JEM. My initials, Joseph Edward McCarthy. So check out my website. There's a lot of cool information on there. If you want to book a call with me, feel free. Always happy to hop on a call and help other fellow entrepreneurs or people who want to succeed in life. But yeah, other than that, feel free to check out the content.
Keep an eye out for that course drop too if you are interested in building your own brand.
Massive.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, again, thank you so much, brother. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And that concludes the first interview episode of the Operation Paragon podcast. I strongly encourage you guys to check out Joe, whether you're interested in building a personal brand or a business, or you just want to get your mindset right. He's posting a ton of valuable content. I personally have a ton of respect for the guy. And I'm sure we will be hearing from him at some point in the future, as he is, as you probably heard, a very ambitious dude who constantly has other things going. So follow him at Real Joe McCarthy on Instagram. If you want to get in contact with me and Operation Paragon in general, you can hit us up in the DMs at Operation Paragon on Instagram or email operationparagonpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, remember that greatness is within your reach.